Hired the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, panel. I do appreciate the chairman bringing this very important issue before us, because it's something that I've been talking about for a long time. I think it's crucial, and I agree that the War Powers Resolution has not functioned very well. And a lot of people have argued that it is unconstitutional. Of course, the presidents have argued it was unconstitutional because they wanted more power and more leeway, and others, such as myself, have argued that it has given the president too much power. It actually legalized war for 90 days, and it's very difficult to get out of a war once it gets started. Since World War II, we've had essentially perpetual war with no significant congressional approval, in that there's never been a declaration of war. There's a lot of ambiguity. But quite frankly, I think the ambiguity comes from the fact that we don't follow precisely, which is very clearly stated in the Constitution. You can't go to war unless the war is declared. We'd be a lot better off if we just followed that mandate.
Time of the gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hear 3 points that the panel has made, that the War Powers Resolution has been ineffective. I agree with that. Should be repealed. I agree with that. The conclusion, though, I don't agree with, that we need a new law, and I think that's where the real important part comes. When the Congress passed the War Powers Resolution in the 1970s, it was motivated by the anti-war people, thinking it would help. But the unintended consequence was disastrous. Not only the chaos that you described, but the fact that it legalized war for 90 days. That's what it did. It gave the power, greater power to the president, not less power to the president, and it took away this assumption that Congress had this responsibility to declare war. The panel says that they do not pretend to resolve the constitutional issue, which is fine. That's not your job. And you reassure us that the courts seem to want to stay away, so we don't have to worry about the courts. But what we should worry about is our oath of office and our responsibilities here as Congress people. And that, to me, is the ominous responsibility we have. But I am reassured by Mr. Baker's comment that if it tilts toward one branch of government, maybe this thing won't get passed. And the way I interpret it, it obviously does, and I will challenge the panel on this, and then they can answer my comments. And the reason I challenge this is first, the consultation isn't with the Congress. You pick out a few people, select people, and they're supposed to represent us. No, the responsibility for war is the Congress, not a select group. So the president starts a war. It lasts a week. He comes to the select committee, and they say, okay, sounds like we better do it. Then after 30 days, we have this opportunity to vote. Then we vote that we disapprove the war, and then we have to have another vote, a vote of disapproval. And so we pass that, and then the president vetoes it. So what we're establishing here is the power of the president to pursue war with a select committee and then endorsed by the Congress with 1/3 of the Congress, because he can veto this. I think this is going absolutely in the wrong direction, and I think Mr. Rohrabacher pointed out earlier, it's mostly because we don't live up to our commitments. Once again, I think the panel makes the point that we do have the fallback, and the fallback is that we can deny funds. But then we're politically trapped. We never could do that in Korea or Vietnam. It goes on, because then we get painted as un-American. We don't care about the troops. So once they get the upper hand, they can start the war, run the war, and 1/3 of the Congress endorse the war, hit the people in harm's way, and then you're said, oh, you're un-American if you vote against this process. So I ask the panel, show me why this is not tilting power to the executive branch and to a small group of congressmen, rather than reestablishing the principle that in this country, very precisely, it was stated that the Congress declares war. This has no interference whatsoever for the president to act in emergencies. That is clear-cut. We know that. Even before the War Powers Resolution, this doesn't change it. So why am I wrong in thinking that this is not tilting, that this is tilting toward the president and against the Congress?
I think you're wrong, Congressman, because if you don't do anything, you have the situation you're talking about. You're not going to have anything, and the presidents are going to do what they consider necessary to protect the national security of the country. And they have the power they claim under the Constitution to do that. And you're not going to be able to do anything about it. So you're better off, I think, we think, if you consult, if the two branches consult with each other, rather than continuing to knock heads over who has the power, the ultimate power. Because we're not going to get an answer to that.
Of course, the Congress, I put most of the blame on the Congress for being derelict in their responsibility. But if presidents just go out and start wars, sure the Congress has something to do with it. They shouldn't fund them. If it's necessary, they need to impeach the president. But this whole thing, I answered my question about 1/3 of the Congress. Actually, 1/3 of the Congress and the president can pursue war. Is that not correct?
Well, you say that because the president has a right to veto bills presented to him under the presentment clause. That happens to be in the Constitution. If you don't like that, you can get a constitutional amendment passed that would delete that. I don't think you'll have any success.
I'm not arguing that point. I'm arguing whether or not I'm right that 1/3 of the Congress and the president can pursue war. That's
no,
the point.
You're not right, because you have under our legislation specifically not only a right to vote, but a duty to vote with respect to it. And if it's voted down here in the Congress, you're just on the losing side. That's what that is.
Congressman Paul, may I?
I'm only concerned that votes are going to come, and I want to get as many members as possible. So the 5 minutes has expired, and I apologize